Well, good day. So, for today's video, we're going to be talking about Christmas and Garfield and the first cartoon appearance of Jon Arbuckle's family. So, yeah. Alright, let's go.
Alright, so we start off on Christmas Day. Jon wakes Garfield up for breakfast, which features enough lasagna to incapacitate a small pachyderm. But Garfield persists. Next, Jon gives Garfield his gift, which is basically an early version of a matter replicator from Star Trek. You just think of an item and boom! The Santa gift giving thing will provide it. Jon, like a peasant, thinks for a hat. But Garfield knows better, right? He thinks of things like candy. Oh, wait a second, sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong Garfield special. He thinks of diamonds, gems, a VCR, important things. But it was just a dream, a wonderfully terrible dream. Jon wakes Garfield up in the real world on Christmas Eve because they and Odie are heading off to the family farm for Christmas. Jon's totally pumped up, but Garfield, man, he's kind of not really into it. But he has no choice and he has to go. Maybe he's salty because he has to listen to Jon sing all the way out to the farm. The next thing you know, they're at the farm. And we meet Jon's mom and dad, his brother Doc Boy, and his badass grandma. And she can probably bench press you and put you into a pretzel if you ain't careful. She'll also make you the best damn sausage gravy in the county that'll burn your face off. Like, man, what can't she do? Meanwhile, Odie is up to some crazy shenanigans, man. He starts to steal and hoard these small little items. He's laughing his ass off about it, like he's a crazy pack rat. Makes no sense. But there's no time to think about that because it's time to eat supper. And there is an overabundance of food to choose from. Too much food though, right? Like Jon asks his mom to hand over some potatoes, but there's too many options of potatoes that he can't decide, so he decides to choose some pie. Pie is not a potato option, Jon. Unless it's shepherd's pie, which there ain't any. The options are scalloped, whipped, fried, baked, or boiled. Jeez. Pie. But now that supper is over, Garfield is well fed. It's time for the Christmas traditions. First up, decorating the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. What? Why hasn't this tree been up and decorated since November 12th, like a normal person does? Jeez. These old-fashioned Christmas traditions, eh? Yeah. The biggest part about this tradition is the tree topper going up last, which apparently only Garfield can place up there by climbing up the tree because I guess ladders have not been invented yet. And it begs the question, if they don't have a cat, how the hell did they put the star up the previous years? But either way, she's a beauty tree, Clark. Next tradition, Christmas caroling, which Doc Boy absolutely butchers with his horrible piano playing. Oh boy, you just wasted a lot of money on piano lessons there, Doc Boy's dad. Thankfully, Grandma is there to go all Little Richard boop-boop-a-doop-pop, boop-a-doop-pop, and just bop up the joint, right? It's a great rendition of the song, but a little too hardcore for this crowd, so Mom Arbuckle decides to kind of slow down the tempo with an original beauty Christmas song. And now the mood is set for Grandma to pour her heart out to Garfield, a cat, about how much she misses her husband. As we all know, Christmas is a very sentimental time of year, and my heartstrings are hurting just a little bit from her story. It's also a little dusty in here. Next tradition, reading of the classic story, Binky, the clown who saved Christmas. And man, oh man, do I ever wish this book actually existed, man. After hearing about it all these years, man, I really want to know what the hell the story is. So Mr. Arbuckle is a little perturbed that these grown adult offspring of his need to listen to a children's book every year. But say it with me, folks, it's tradition. And now it's time for the final Christmas Eve tradition known as get your damn ass in your damn room and go to damn sleep. Even though Jon and Doc Boy try to get up early to open gifts, still, the tradition prevails. Meanwhile, Odie goes out in the barn and puts all of his stolen little items together to make this thing. And as Garfield is following him, he stumbles upon some old letters. But it's now Christmas morning, and everyone eagerly opens up their Christmas presents. And well, actually, Mom Arbuckle is the only one that looks like she didn't get a gift. Like, what the hell? Everyone else has at least one thing except for her. There better be a brand new car for her on the driveway. You know, Garfield gives Grandma those old dusty letters that he found, which turns out were some love letters from Grandpa to her, which is like fantastic amazing. The last Christmas gift on the docket is that crazy thing that Odie made. Turns out it's for Garfield, and it's a back scratcher. Back scratcher? But Garfield turned his kind of bah humbug attitude from earlier in the special to one of love and joy at the end of it. 'Tis Christmas after all. But with that is where we end this fantastic tale.
Man, like, that is such a freaking awesome Christmas cartoon! And like, I dare say, man, that is probably my favorite Christmas special of all time. If you know me, like, you know how much I love Rankin and Bass Christmas specials, right? Frosty, Rudolph, Santa! But those are magical Christmas characters that I can only relate to, like, so much, right? Like, I guess, you know, like, I've overcome adversity from my peers. I do appreciate the concept of it's better to give than receive. And, I don't melt in the sun, I guess? But when it comes to this Garfield Christmas special, man, like, everything is so relatable. Like, if you were to strip all the jokes and all the characters from the special, like, the heart of the special is just, you know, a family celebrating Christmas together with all of their wonderful Christmas traditions, like trimming the tree, overstuffing yourself at dinner, the Christmas caroling, and reading or watching the exact same Christmas story year after year. It's just not Christmas if I don't watch this Garfield Christmas special, right? So I can dig Binky the Clown saving Christmas. And on a more serious note, like, even just missing the people who are no longer around, you know, at Christmas time. Like, for me, you know, like, when I watch this, I can't help but notice that Jon Arbuckle's mom kind of resembles my late grandma. And indeed, she did make a whole lot of food at Christmas too, so like, I am very reminiscent of her every time I watch this special. And, you know, of course, my other grandparents as well, right? And with that, right, like, that's a really cool thing about this Christmas special. They crammed in as much emotion as they could. You had the really corny gags, you know, you had the basic kind of Christmassy things going on, you had the really serious kind of things happening in there. Everything flowed really nice. And of course, the traveling to someone's place for Christmas. I'm sure we've all done that, right? I myself have driven many a miles to celebrate Christmas, you know, outside of my home city. So I can totally dig it. But a very relatable, very wonderful, very right to the point kind of a Christmas special. And that's what is so endearing about it. Also for the fact that the music in this is freaking amazing, man. The vocal talents of Desiree Goyette and Lou Rawls, man. Boom, they just hammer it out, man. Also, the music being written by Desiree and her future husband, Ed Bogas. I am shocked, I tell you, that there is not an actual Christmas album for this special. Like, every song was like, boom, out of the park, awesome, amazing, right? Even though every song is basically under a minute long and some songs are maybe like 20 seconds. Still, so if you haven't checked the special out yet, you know, I definitely recommend it. And let's go see what else we can find about this Garfield Christmas special here.
So yeah, man, Garfield Christmas. So Garfield creator Jim Davies has stated that this is kind of a semi-autobiographical kind of story, right? Because Jim grew up on the family farm. Then he moved to the big city, just like Jon Arbuckle did, right? Although Jim does not have a cat, he does have a grandfather whose middle name is Garfield. The Arbuckle family is actually based on Jim Davies' family as well. Mr. and Mrs. Arbuckle have the exact same personality as Jim's parents. And Jim Davies does have a younger brother nicknamed Doc, which I'm sure he's called him Doc Boy many a times. So you can see how some elements of his life kind of creep into this awesome story here. So, this special came out in 1987 and it was amazing and fantastic. But after it was out for a couple of years, they wanted to make it more fantastic. And they did just that in 1991. But how, you say? Well, they just changed a couple things up hither and dither. Like, for example, so originally, in 1987, there was a scene that was cut out of the original broadcast. That's the scene where Doc Boy and Grandma are playing piano. You know, that scene where Doc Boy clearly wasted his dad's money on piano lessons because he can't play the damn thing? And Grandma tickles those ivories pretty awesomely? Yeah, that scene, man. So for whatever reason it was cut out of the original broadcast, they decided to add the scene back in for the re-edited version, which was great. Like, it's a pretty funny and charming kind of scene, right? It really helps hammer in some character traits of the two characters involved in it, right? Like, it's a great scene altogether. In order to make that scene fit, they had to make some room somehow, right? So some scenes were kind of shortened by a few seconds here and there. Some really not important scenes were kind of cut out completely. Like, in the original 1987 version, John was shown getting in the car, driving out of the driveway, and driving through the city to get, out of town to the farm. They cut the part of him driving within the city out because it's not really important. You'll see him driving on the back roads and you kind of understand that he drove out of the city, right? So little things like that, so it's not really a big loss, for what they cut out for the new version. Another change that was made? The scene in where Grandma is reminiscing about her late husband, to Garfield there, they completely redid the animation on that scene. Right, like it was a pretty emotional and impactful scene from Grandma there, right? Letting her heart out like that to a cat. So they really spruced it up. Like, you actually seen a picture of Grandpa. Instead of just hearing about him, they really changed all the lighting and stuff like that, so it was actually really well done. So those are the big changes that were made from the two different versions, which I think is great, I did like that one part in the original 1987 version where Grandma is petting Garfield and her hand just kind of disappears completely, like out of the blue. I don't know how bad editing like that kind of got in there in the first place, but that's probably why they went back to change it in 1991, right? And then there was the book adaptation. And this book kind of added a bit to the story as well. Well, not really important things, I guess, but they added some extra scenes in there, such as John wrapping presents before leaving for the farm, and Garfield wrapping Odie like he's normal. Also, with John helping out with chores on the farm, and his city slicker ways have made him soft. And he can't keep up with Doc Boy and his dad. Also in the book, Garfield helped Odie make the back scratcher. Even though he had no idea what it was, he still made it correctly. It's a pretty smart cat, man. There was another random Garfield-themed Christmas book called Garfield's Christmas Tales, where we find out some shared universe history. So Jim Davis, as we all know, had another comic strip called U.S. Acres, or Orson's Farm, I guess depending on which country you lived in, from what it was called. And there was a story in this book stating that the farm that Orson lives on is actually the farm next door to the Arbuckle family farm. And that's pretty neat, I think. It adds a little bit to the Christmas special, right? Knowing Orson and his buddies are just hanging out there doing their own kind of Christmas thing, just a few acres away, Well, I think it's neat anyway. If you do want to see more Garfield Christmas kind of stuff, there's a couple of things out there. In season 2 of the show Garfield and Friends, there is an episode called Heat Wave Holiday, in which during a heat wave in the summer, things are so freaking hot that Garfield, John, and Odie decide to celebrate Christmas in a way to mentally cool down, right? This mentality catches on throughout the town and even Santa Claus shows up. Also, in the Garfield show, also in the second season, there is a 2-part story called Home for the Holidays, featuring Mr. and Mrs. Arbuckle and Doc Boy. So yeah, pretty good stuff. But yeah, man, those are some of the quick little things about this Christmas special. It's awesome. They try to make it awesomer, and that's pretty much all you need to know about that. But yeah, man, with this, that, those, and the other things, I guess, that's that. Also, if you guys are interested, I created my own superhero show and I have the first episode out already. The Adventures of the Density. So if you guys would like to check it out, I'll have a link above here and a link at the end of the video for you to peruse there. Yeah, right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, feel free to do so. Or anything else, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, have a great day. Thanks.